Imagine someone is sitting at your table right now. Someone who smiles, listens to your stories, and even seems to care. But what you don't realize is that, while they speak, this person is silently taking something from you. Not your money, nor your possessions, but something far more valuable, your zest for life. My grandfather used to say that the real enemy rarely comes with a sword in hand. He comes with kind words, calm gestures, and the kind of presence that seems harmless. But that's precisely where the danger lies, because what destroys the soul almost never makes a sound. And if you've ever had the feeling of leaving a conversation more tired than when you went in, if you've ever noticed that some people leave you feeling heavier, perhaps this is the time to take a closer look at who is sitting at your table. Throughout my life, I've learned that time doesn't steal from anyone. It's the wrong people who steal from us. They arrive smiling, saying they want what's best for us, and slowly begin to change the rhythm of our days. At first, it's imperceptible, a comment here, a veiled criticism there, a complaint thrown into the air. But after a while, you start waking up differently, less cheerful, less confident, less light-hearted, and you don't understand why. What few people realize is that human energy is contagious. That's why some people make us feel alive just by being near them, and others seem to suck the air out of the room. It's not mysticism, it's biology and emotion. Our bodies react to every expression, every tone of voice, every look. When we're around someone who vibrates with pessimism, resentment, or envy, our nervous system responds. Our heart rate accelerates, our sleep worsens, our mood drops. And that's how, silently, life is gradually drained away. But what scares me most is that these energy thieves don't present themselves as enemies. In fact, they almost always disguise themselves as good, generous people or victims of life. They like to say they just want to vent, ask for advice, share what they feel. And we, believing we are being empathetic, we opened the door to the soul, without realizing that we've just invited the thief in. My grandfather used to say that the world rests on 3 pillars: truth, goodness, and justice. And I believe that. But as the years have passed, I've also discovered that there are 3 forces capable of destroying these pillars. 3 types of people who, if not recognized in time, can steal from us what is most precious: enthusiasm, peace, and faith in ourselves. These 3 people can appear at any stage of life, but something changes after 50. At that age, the body no longer recovers as quickly, and the heart, once patient, begins to need rest. That's when we discover that there is no such thing as infinite energy, and that each conversation, each companionship is an invisible exchange of life. Some recharge us, others drain us. Have you ever noticed that some people seem to bring light just by entering a room? They speak and you feel the air become lighter. Time flies when you're with them. Now think of the opposite, someone with whom just 10 minutes is enough for the whole day to lose its shine. Why does this happen? Perhaps because some presences illuminate while others cast shadows. For years, I believed that simply being a good person was enough to be protected. But kindness without conscience is like leaving the door unlocked at night. Sooner or later, someone will break in. And the energy thief doesn't need to be evil to hurt us. It just needs to be empty enough to use our strength as fuel. I've seen brilliant people slowly fade away, men who lost their joy in work, women who stopped smiling, all because someone close to them day after day sowed doubt, complained about the world, or simply demanded attention without ever giving anything in return. And when the wear and tear comes, it's silent, like erosion. You don't notice the hole forming until one day everything collapses, and the saddest thing is that almost no one talks about it. We spend years believing that love is patience, that friendship is enduring, that helping is always being available. But it's not. To love is also to protect one's own heart. No one has the right to enter your life and take away what you have built with so much effort. So, before we go on, I want to ask you something. Look honestly at the people around you. Is there someone who makes you feel small? Someone who makes you feel tired, weighed down, or insecure? If the answer is yes, perhaps you've already let one of these thieves in. What I want to show you in this video is not just how to recognize them, but how to protect before they steal the years that are still left. Because life, when lived well, is long. But when the soul is surrounded by the wrong people, even a day can seem like an eternity. Time has taught me that you don't need to fight with anyone to defend yourself. Sometimes all it takes is realizing it. Realizing that the heavy silence after a conversation isn't normal. That tightness in your chest when someone gets close is no coincidence. It's the body trying to warn you. Careful, someone is taking more than they should. And that's precisely what I want to continue talking about. Because from here on out, we're going to get to the heart of this truth. Let's talk about who these three invisible thieves are. Those who steal joy, money, and light. And especially about how to stop them from stealing what time cannot give back. You. But before revealing who they are, I want to show you how they approach, how to recognize them when they are still smiling. And why do most people only find out they've been robbed when you no longer have the strength to react? In the next few minutes, you'll understand why, after 50, the right people become the best medicine, and the wrong ones, the worst disease. And when that becomes clear, everything you believe about friendship, loyalty, and kindness, it will never be the same again. There comes a point in life when you start to realize that time is no longer the same. It passes differently. Weeks seem like days, and years start to fly by as if someone had sped up the clock. That's when you understand, without anyone needing to tell you, that time is the only thing that truly doesn't come back, and that each person you spend it with is, in a way, a gamble. You either emerge from this exchange lighter or emptier. When we're young, we can endure almost anything. Negative people, tiresome friendships, relationships that drain more than they give. Youth has energy to spare, but after 50, the body starts to demand payment for every choice. Sleepless nights turn into weeks of exhaustion. Heavy conversations leave a tightness in the chest. And suddenly, what was once just another venting session becomes back pain, shortness of breath, a desire to be alone. There is a much deeper connection between what we feel and what we experience than we usually imagine. Our body hears what the soul cannot say. When we live with people who constantly complain, criticize, compare, or demand too much, the body interprets this as an attack. It defends itself. The heart races, sleep worsens, muscles tense, and vitality slowly fades. That's why some people age with serene faces and others with tired eyes. It's not genetics, it's the environment. I remember a man I met a few years ago. He was 72 years old and came to see me because he said he no longer wanted to live. He spoke calmly, but his eyes showed he was carrying the weight of the world. I asked him questions, trying to understand what was happening. His heart was fine, his tests were normal, nothing serious. Then I asked him what his days were like. He smiled slightly and replied, "Oh, I spend a lot of time with my neighbor. We talk every day. He complains about his wife, the government, his children. I listen because I feel sorry for him." And it was at that moment that I realized what was happening. That man wasn't just listening to his neighbor, he was breathing his air. Every bitter word, every complaint, every bit of anger, it was all entering him like smoke. And, like any body that breathes too much smoke, he was slowly suffocating. I asked him to try something simple, limit the conversation time. 2 weeks later, he called me. His voice was different. He said he was sleeping better, that he had started walking again, that even the coffee tasted better. He had stopped breathing someone else's air. It's not a coincidence. It's energy, it's vibration, and it happens to more people than you imagine. Think for a moment. How many times have you heard someone complain so much that you felt your own mood worsen? How many times has a simple conversation left you exhausted without understanding why? That's it. That's how the soul gets sick. Not from a lack of love, but from too much of the wrong kind of interaction. And the curious thing is that the older we get, the more vulnerable we become to this. Because we start to value not being alone more than being at peace. And that's where many people go wrong. They prefer any company, even if it costs them the sparkle they still have left. There's an old saying, "Tell me who your friends are." and I'll tell you who you are. Over the years, this phrase has gone from being a saying to a diagnosis. The people around us shape our destiny. They influence how we think, how we feel, and even how our bodies react. A pessimistic friend teaches you to expect the worst. An envious companion teaches you to doubt yourself. A bitter family member teaches you to silence your smile. And the worst part is that this doesn't happen all at once. It's a slow, almost imperceptible theft. There's also the other side. People who have the gift of igniting the good within us. They are the ones who make us laugh, who believe when we doubt, who listen without complaining. Being near them is like opening a window on a sunny day. They don't ask, they don't demand, they simply exist. And life around them becomes lighter. After a certain age, these people are worth more than any medicine. But to find them, you need the courage to let the others go. And that's one of the hardest lessons of maturity, because we are taught to endure, to be patient, to understand. And in the name of understanding, we let them wear us down. Have you ever noticed how your body reacts when a specific person calls? Sometimes the phone rings and your heart races. That's no coincidence. The body knows before the mind who is good and who is bad. After 50, this perception becomes almost an internal compass. It shows us what time wants to teach us. The secret to a long life lies not in living many years, but in living alongside the right people. I've seen 40-year marriages end not because of infidelity, but because of emotional exhaustion. I've seen old friendships turn into prisons. I've seen people heal from serious illnesses simply by changing their social circle. It sounds like an exaggeration, but it's not. The environment is the first form of medicine and also the most neglected. My grandfather used to say that the soul is like a candle. If the wind is gentle, it dances. If the wind is constant, it goes out. And perhaps that is the greatest mistake of our generation, learning to live alongside strong winds and calling that resistance. To resist is not to live. To live is to choose breezes that fuel the flame, not those that destroy it. And if you feel your flame is fading, perhaps the problem isn't age or circumstances, but the people around you. Because some people don't age us with time, but with how often they extinguish our enthusiasm. In the next few minutes, I want to show you who these people are. They don't arrive suddenly. They are subtle, affectionate, and often familiar. You will recognize each one of them, perhaps even remember faces as I speak. And most importantly, you will learn to recognize the first sign, that slight discomfort your body feels when your soul is trying to warn you. Because the first step to protecting your own energy is not to fight against anyone. It is learning to see. And when you clearly see who is draining you, who is using you, and who is erasing you, you will understand that the silence that comes after separation is not loneliness. It is healing. But before that, I need to introduce you to the first one, the most common, the most cheerful, and perhaps the most dangerous. He doesn't shout, he doesn't demand, he doesn't steal by force. He just talks. And every time she speaks, she takes a piece of her joy with her. Have you ever noticed that there are people who never speak directly about pain, but who turn every conversation into a silent funeral? They are the ones who, when they enter the room, change the atmosphere. They don't need to say anything heavy. A common phrase, a disheartened look, and suddenly the air becomes dense. They are experts at transforming lightness into weight. And the most curious thing is that almost no one notices. The first thief of our energy doesn't come to attack. He comes to vent. He wears the mask of the poor victim, the wronged one, the one who just wants to talk. But what he actually does is suck the joy from others to continue existing. These people carry what I call emotional burdens, frustrations, resentments, old grievances. And when they find someone willing to listen, they pass the weight on. They talk, and talk. And when they say goodbye, they leave relieved. But who listened? That person leaves exhausted. They leave with a more tense body, a heavier chest, and without knowing why. It's an invisible but powerful exchange. They feed on the energy you lose. There are people who spend their lives being everyone's shoulder to cry on. They are generous, kind-hearted, and believe that listening is an act of love. But what no one tells you is that listening too much, without a filter, can be a slow way to become intoxicated. Every negative story, every repeated complaint, every bitter word is stored in the body, and the body remembers. It responds with anxiety, fatigue, and even physical pain. How many times have you felt an inexplicable weight after a conversation? This is not a coincidence. It's your soul asking to breathe. Now think, how many people in your life talk more about problems than about plans? How many times have you sat down to talk and left feeling sadder than when you went in? The truth is, when we don't set boundaries, we become an emotional dumping ground for those who don't want to change. And the price of that is high. One day, a woman came to me saying she hadn't slept in months. She was 65 years old, healthy but constantly tired. As she spoke, I noticed that every sentence she uttered began with, "My sister." It was always her sister, her sick sister, her sad sister, her abandoned sister. I asked how often they talked. She replied, "Every day, for hours. I feel sorry for her." Then I asked, "And who feels sorry for you?" She fell silent. It was the first time she realized that her love was turning into poison. I asked her to try something simple, cut our conversations in half. 2 weeks later, she called me, emotional. She said she was sleeping better, that her body felt lighter, and that even her voice sounded different. The only thing she did was stop carrying other people's weight every day. Sometimes it's not the world that's heavy. It's just someone who's been leaning on you for too long. But why is it so hard to notice? Because the complainer doesn't seem dangerous. They present themselves as vulnerable, sensitive, wronged. They make you feel important, as if you're the only one who understands. And that's how they gain attention. They want your ear, your time, your comfort, and above all, they want your attention. The problem is that for these people, attention is fuel. The more you give, the more they complain. Because complaining is the way they've found to stay at the center of their own story. Have you ever noticed that there are people who don't know how to live in peace? If the day is calm, they find a reason to complain. If everything is fine, they remember something that went wrong 10 years ago. It's as if silence scares them. And what do they do with this fear? They project it onto whoever is nearby, you. Now ask yourself, why do you still listen? Is it really empathy or fear of seeming selfish? Because deep down, the first thief thrives on this confusion. He knows that good people have difficulty saying enough. He knows that guilt is a powerful tool, and he uses it masterfully. There's something curious about human biology. The brain is unable to distinguish between what you experience and what you hear. This means that when someone narrates tragedies, complaints, and fears, your body reacts as if you were experiencing them. Your nervous system prepares to fight, cortisol increases, and without realizing it, you enter a state of constant alert. The problem is that when this state is repeated every day, the body begins to get sick. A childhood neighbor once told me something I've never forgotten. Listening too much is like drinking dirty water and thinking you're quenching your thirst. At first it seems harmless, but little by little, the soul fills with impurities and the heart loses its shine. How many times have you tried to help someone and in the end felt like disappearing? How many times have you left a conversation wanting only silence? That's the body trying to cleanse itself. But there's an important detail. The complainer rarely changes. They don't want a solution. They want an audience. They want someone to confirm the victim role they've chosen to play. And if you keep listening, they'll keep complaining. Because what fuels this type of person isn't the problem, it's the attention they receive for having it. So, what to do? The first step isn't to push them away, it's to set limits. Learn to say, "I understand, but I can't talk about this right now," and maintain a firm tone. Initially, they will try to insist, use guilt, drama, emotional blackmail, but little by little, they realize that you are no longer a readily available energy donor. And it is at this moment that the power shifts. There's something liberating about protecting your own silence. It becomes a space for healing. You begin to realize that the world isn't as heavy as it seemed. That without the constant noise of others' complaints, even the sound of the wind seems like music. and life, which once seemed exhausting, begins to breathe again. But beware, this is only the first thief, the most common, the easiest to recognize, because he acts with words, with presence, with drama. The next ones are more subtle, more dangerous, and, in some cases, even closer than you imagine. One will steal your joy, the other will steal something even harder to recover, your material and emotional peace. And what he often takes away is not just money, it's trust. Are you ready to meet him? The second thief of life doesn't come with complaints. He comes with demands, and that's precisely why he's more dangerous. Because while the first one tires you with words, this one convinces you with stories. He doesn't steal your energy. He steals what sustains your security, your money, your time, and your peace of mind. And contrary to what many think, it's not about greed. It's about emotional manipulation. In Jewish wisdom, there's an ancient proverb that says, "He who gives away all he has loses not only his wealth, but also his soul." It took me years to understand what that meant. There are people who have an almost natural talent for arousing guilt and pity in others. They are the ones who are always in need of something, a favor, a loan, a last resort. And you, out of empathy, give in. Once, twice, 3 times, until, without realizing it, you become part of their problem. I remember a man who came to see me when he was 68 years old. He said he lived with a racing heart, sleepless nights, and a constant fear that something bad was going to happen. I ran all the possible tests: healthy heart, normal blood pressure, strong body for his age, but his soul, that was exhausted. Talking, I discovered the reason. He had a childhood friend who had been borrowing money for years, small amounts at first, then larger sums, always promising to pay it back. He never did, and he, out of shame or guilt, continued to help. When I asked why, he replied, "Because I feel bad about refusing." It was at that moment that I realized he wasn't suffering from anxiety. He was suffering from boundless, excessive kindness. Helping others is beautiful, but when that help starts to destroy your peace, it stops being generosity and becomes self-sabotage. I asked him to try saying no for the first time. He laughed, thinking it would be impossible. But a month later, he returned with a gleam in his eye that I hadn't seen in a long time. He said that his friend had moved away, that he finally slept peacefully, and that he had discovered something surprising. His heart beat calmly, not because the problem was over, but because he had stopped carrying a weight that wasn't his. Have you ever felt like this, trapped in a relationship where saying no seems cruel? Ever been afraid of seeming selfish for protecting yourself? That's how the second thief enters, not through force, but through compassion. He awakens your most human side and uses it as a weapon. And the curious thing is that he often doesn't even realize the harm he causes. He lives in a cycle of dependency, and to avoid facing his own emptiness, he needs you to fill his gaps. According to research data on financial behavior, about 60% of people who lend money to family or friends never get it back. And even more interesting, 40% report losing sleep and developing anxiety symptoms after the loss. It's not about the amount itself. It's about the breach of trust, because money is just a symbol. What hurts is realizing that someone used your goodwill as a shortcut to escape their own responsibility. In psychology, people like this are called emotional takers. They believe the world owes them something and that others exist to compensate for their shortcomings. You can easily recognize them. They are always in trouble, but they never change their behavior. They always promise that this time it will be different, and it never is. The pattern repeats itself like an addiction. Now think, how many times have you been drained by someone like that? How many times have you felt obligated to help, even knowing it would hurt you? How many nights have you stayed awake, trying to find a solution that wasn't even yours? The second thief operates in the realm of guilt. He convinces you that being good means never saying no. And when you realize it, you're emotionally trapped. One of my mentors used to say, "He who lends more than he can afford pays with his heart." Those words have stayed with me. Helping is a sacred act, But help that destroys the giver is a disguised form of self-destruction. There is a huge difference between charity and emotional servitude. Charity is when you give and feel at peace. Servitude is when you give and feel burdened. But the most interesting thing is what happens after you break that cycle. When the taker realizes you're no longer available, they walk away. Not out of anger, but because there's nothing left to take. And over time, you notice something curious. Your energy increases, your mind clears, and even your body feels lighter. This happens because the brain associates financial loss with danger. When you get rid of the exploitation, the body understands that it's safe again. Many believe they lose money due to bad luck, but the truth is that a large part of the losses comes from unresolved emotional ties. We give to those who don't deserve it because we want to be seen as good. We want to prove something, perhaps to ourselves, perhaps to the past. But there is no virtue in emptying oneself to keep the other person afloat. What if I told you that this second thief doesn't just steal with requests? Sometimes he steals with promises. He offers partnership, business ventures, a life-changing deal. He speaks eloquently, seems sincere, and uses your heart as collateral. How many people have lost savings, friendships, and health because they believed that helping was the same as trusting? Most stories of financial betrayal begin with a simple phrase, "I trust you." Trust is beautiful, but it needs limits. Limits are what separate faith from naivete. Helping is noble, but it must have moderation. Because without moderation, it becomes sacrifice. And constant sacrifice is not a virtue, it's exhaustion. The truth is, after 50, the greatest luxury isn't money, it's tranquility. And tranquility requires boundaries. Learning to say no is like closing windows on a stormy day. It's not a lack of love, it's self-preservation. But there's something even deeper about this theft. When someone abuses your generosity, they don't just take what's in your wallet. They take a part of your faith in people. And recovering that faith is a slow, painful, and sometimes lonely process. That's why so many good people shut themselves off, isolate themselves, and lose the will to trust again. Because a financial disappointment is rarely about money. It's about values, and that's precisely where the danger of the third thief lies. Because he doesn't want your money, nor your strength. He wants something much more intimate, your belief in yourself. He silently steals what gives meaning to life, the light that keeps you going. And when that theft happens, neither the body nor the heart can withstand it in the same way. But before I introduce you to this last thief, the most cruel of them all, I want you to think about something simple. How many times have you said yes when you wanted to say no? Because it's in that small moment that the theft begins. The third thief is the most silent, the most dangerous, and often the closest. He doesn't arrive with requests or lamentations. He arrives with opinions, with advice disguised as care, with phrases that seem innocent but carry a slow and constant poison. He's the type of person who doesn't take anything from you visibly, but steals what keeps your soul alive, your faith in yourself. These thieves don't need to raise their voices. They use words that sound calm but cut deep. Phrases like, "You're always wrong. You'll never change. You can't do it without me." At first you even disagree, try to argue, but over time you start to believe them. Because the poison of doubt, when repeated many times, transforms into truth. And when that happens, the world loses its color. Victories seem smaller, failures heavier, and the future more distant. I met a 70-year-old woman who had lived 40 years hearing these phrases. She married young, believing that love was enough. But her husband, a cold and controlling man, made her believe she was weak, clumsy, incapable. "You ruin everything," he would always say whenever something went wrong. And she, as the years passed, stopped trying. She stopped cooking, dressing up, dreaming. When he died, she didn't cry. She remained silent, a silence that didn't come from relief, but from the emptiness of someone who had been robbed inside. The cruelest thing about this type of thief is that he's not content with diminishing you. He needs you to see yourself as small. That's how he maintains control. He wants to be the loudest voice in your mind. And when he succeeds, you start living in fear of being who you are. You start apologizing for existing. And perhaps the most frightening thing is realizing how many people live like this without noticing. How many times have you heard someone close to you say something that hurt you, but you preferred to pretend it didn't hurt? How many times have you kept quiet about a response to avoid an argument? These small concessions, repeated over the years, build an invisible prison. One day you wake up and realize you no longer know what you like, what you want, what you dream of, because your voice has been replaced by that of someone who convinced you that they know what's best for you. And the body feels it. The heart tightens, sleep disappears, appetite changes. Science has already shown that people who live in emotionally abusive environments have weakened immune systems, are more likely to develop heart disease, and even age faster. The mind believes what it hears, and the body reacts. That's how the thief of light acts, slowly, like a constant wind that gradually extinguishes a candle. But there's a detail that few people understand. The thief of light doesn't always have consciously bad intentions. Sometimes they too have been hurt, and they repeat what they've learned. These are parents who criticize out of fear of seeing their children fail. These are partners who control out of insecurity. These are friends who belittle others because they don't know how to deal with their own failures. They believe they are helping, when in reality they are spreading the darkness they carry. This is not an excuse, but an explanation, because understanding is not the same as accepting. Understanding is recognizing the pattern. Accepting is allowing it to continue. And if there is a moment in life when we can no longer accept the theft of our own soul, that moment is now. After 50, there is no more time to live in the shadows of others. We've already seen ourselves lose sleep, patience, years of joy. Now what remains must be protected with the same force with which we protect the air we breathe. Once, a rabbi told me something I'll never forget. Even the strongest flame goes out if the wind doesn't stop. Those words made me understand that no one is made to resist forever. A person's strength lies not in enduring, but in knowing when to step away. And perhaps that is the greatest act of self-love, stepping away from the wind that extinguishes your light. Some people spend their lives waiting for the other person to change, waiting for the tone of their words to soften, for their gaze to become sweet again. But the thief of light doesn't change with promises. He changes when he loses power, and his power is your fear. When you lose the fear of disappointing him, he loses his hold. That's why sometimes a simple phrase is enough to begin to break free. I am not what you say I am. It may seem like a small thing, but it's in this phrase that the soul begins to breathe again, because no one can destroy a heart that believes in itself. And the first step to recovering that faith is remembering who you were before the criticism, before the fear, before the silence. Remember when you believed you could. That memory is the seed of light. There's a simple exercise I teach to those who live surrounded by this type of person. Close your eyes and imagine a flame inside your chest. Now imagine that every cruel word, every look of contempt, every humiliation is a wind trying to extinguish that flame. Instead of fighting the wind, protect the fire with your hands. Imagine that the fire grows, that it strengthens, that it illuminates, because that flame is you, and it's still there. Perhaps no one has told you this, but you don't need to prove anything. You don't need to earn respect. You were born with it. You don't need to beg for love. It only has value when it's free. And above all, you don't need to diminish yourself to fit into a world that fears your light. The thief of light may make you doubt, but he can never extinguish what is true. And what is true within you doesn't need permission to shine. Just remember, just choose. In the next few moments, I want to show you what lies beyond liberation, the path back within. Because when the heart finally understands that it no longer needs to resist, a new kind of life begins, a life where peace doesn't depend on others, and where the light, once rekindled, never goes out again. There comes a point in life when we understand that protecting our own peace isn't selfishness. it's survival. That being strong isn't about enduring everything, but knowing what we no longer need to carry. That maturity isn't about being older. It's about having the courage to choose who stays and who needs to be left behind. After so many years living with people who drain, suck, or extinguish us, there's a moment when something awakens within us, a silent calling that says, "Now it's your turn." And it is precisely here that the true new beginning starts. Not the kind with empty promises or temporary changes, but the new beginning from within. The kind that transforms how you live, feel, and choose. Because life doesn't suddenly get better. It gets better when you start making different choices. Starting today, I want to propose something simple, yet profoundly transformative. A practical plan to protect what you value most: your energy, your peace, and your light. These are 3 daily steps, small enough to fit into your day, but big enough to change the course of your life. The first step: silence. The noise. Set aside a few minutes each day for silence. It could be upon waking, before bed, or during a walk. Disconnect from everything. Close your eyes and take a deep breath 3 times. Inhale, imagining you are receiving light, and exhale, imagining you are releasing weight. This simple practice helps the brain reorganize emotions, calms the nervous system, and restores mental clarity. Silence is the ground where the soul flourishes again. The second step is observe who is around you. Ask yourself, after being with this person, do I feel better or worse? Do this honestly. Write it down if you want. The mind gets confused, but the body never lies. If your heart races, if your breathing changes, if your mood drops, that's the sign. Identifying what hurts you is the first step to freeing yourself. You don't need to push anyone away with anger. Just create distance consciously. Less physical presence, less time, less access. The third step is feed the light every day. This is what makes you immune to soul thieves. Choose 3 small daily acts. 1 of joy, 1 of gratitude, and 1 of self-appreciation. It could be having coffee while watching the sun, mentally giving thanks for something simple, or just looking in the mirror and saying, "I deserve to be at peace." These actions are seeds of inner strength. They create an invisible armor against everything that drains you. But I want you to understand something essential. True change doesn't happen when you listen, but when you decide to act. And in the beginning, acting hurts. Because every transformation begins with discomfort. Saying no for the first time can generate guilt. Staying silent can create estrangement. Prioritizing yourself can seem selfish. But guilt is just the echo of old habits trying to survive. Keep going. Peace comes after guilt. Over time, you'll realize that the world remains the same, but you change, and that's where the magic happens. What once affected you begins to pass by without hurting you. What once tired you no longer reaches you. Because when the light within you grows, no shadow is big enough to extinguish it. A rabbi I knew once said something I've never forgotten. An enlightened person doesn't need to fight against darkness. They simply shine. This phrase sums up everything we've discussed here. The secret to protecting yourself from the 3 thieves, the one who complains, the one who asks, and the one who extinguishes, is not in fighting them. It's in strengthening what is alive within you. If you want to start now, start small. Today, before going to sleep, choose someone from your life and observe how you feel when you think of them. If the feeling is light, be grateful. If it's heavy, wish them peace and move on. Tomorrow, repeat. And every day, do the same. Little by little, your circle will transform. Good people will come closer, and those who live in darkness will naturally drift away. It's the law of energy. What vibrates differently doesn't stay together for long. And if at any point you feel you're losing heart, remember, nothing changes overnight. Life is a garden, and you are the gardener. Some days require pruning, others patience. But if you continue watering with presence, faith, and kindness, the light returns. It always returns. Before I conclude, I want to leave you with a sincere reminder. What you've heard here isn't just advice, it's an invitation. An invitation to live more lightly, to choose more consciously, and to care for your soul as one cares for a fragile flame in the wind. Because in the end, what truly matters isn't what others think of you, but what your soul feels when it's silent. If this video touched you deeply, if it made sense to you at any point, I want to ask you something. Share it with someone who needs to hear this, someone who might be tired, lost, or surrounded by people who make them doubt themselves. You never know how much a simple message can change someone's day or life. And if you want to continue this journey of reflection and wisdom, subscribe to the channel now. Turn on notifications, like the video, and leave a comment about what resonated with you the most. You can write anonymously if you want. The important thing is to share, because it is in sincere exchange that light multiplies. Remember, no one can steal your light if you learn to nurture it every day. Take care of yourself with the same love you've always given to others. And when doubt arises, take a deep breath and repeat, I deserve to be at peace. From here, the path is yours and your light that no one else can extinguish.